Welcome, everybody, to Show Me Online Teaching. We're really glad that you can be with us on this Monday. Our goal here is to provide practical ideas for online teaching and learning. So each episode, we feature a guest teacher sharing a lesson, and then in writing project style, we work to think about how we can adapt this strategy or lesson across content areas and grade levels. Today, I am so excited that we have my stay-at-home inspiration with us, Shauna Stephanchick. When I think something at my house is not going well, I call to mind Shauna and get through it. So I'm serious about this. You really are inspiring to me. So thanks for being here. I'm going to mute myself and let you take over. For those of you on the call, if you'll keep yourselves muted and open up that chat feature, we can use that as a space to make comments, connect with each other, and share writing.
Thanks, Katie. When you're sharing, it makes it sound like I'll be a lot more overwhelmed than you. That's how I took that. I know, I'm teasing. As Katie said, my name is Shauna Stephanchick. I work for a non-for-profit as a literacy coach, and I'm actually an educational consultant with my own company. But more often I'm known as the crazy lady who has 5 kids, 6 and under. I have 2 sets of twins and a baby. And so I'm homeschooling twin boys who are in kindergarten, who are 6, attempting the 4-year-olds, which one can read, so that's exciting. One wants to play with the 3-year-old, in the mud and kinetic sand when we're trying to learn. So I appreciate all opportunities to use my working brain. So I'm thankful to be here, and this was fun to be a part of. So I'm excited to share with you today. We're going to go ahead and open up my PowerPoint of some ideas of how to create closure and memories for the end of the year. And the first thing I want to share with you are just the goals for today. So there's 3 things that I would like to do. Is I just want to provide you with some ideas on how to create closure and reflection for elementary students. I'm going to specifically demonstrate 2 different options. One could be a class memory collage, and the other could be a student-to-student memory collage. So again, these are ideas. My goal is that it could just pique some inspiration for you, and you could take it even further or do more technology and advanced things with it. But at the end, I would like to give us some time for all of us to just collaborate as colleagues, because I'm sure hopefully you'll have some good ideas on next steps. So before we get started, I wanted us to just think back. I've been listening to a lot of webinars on trauma and just what this experience for kids who especially already had trauma coming into this, but for just the trauma that it is causing our own children. With my own 5, I mean, I feel they're causing me trauma. So sometimes I forget to consider what it is doing for them. And I heard this great webinar. There was the chief psychiatrist at Zuckerberg High School or Hospital in California was sharing some good touch points on what this experience is doing for kids. And I thought this was great and wanted to start just a case for why we do need to take the time to have memories. And so this first point, she said the most critical memories from students are going to come from relationships and love. And so just keeping that at the forefront, especially with our elementary kids, that their relationship with you as their teacher and the love and the memories they have for you is huge. And to watch my kindergarten boys' faces when they see a read aloud from their classroom teacher, because they see her face, they see her intonation, it means everything. They've really bonded to you throughout this year. So it's really important that we help give them some closure and let them know that you haven't forgotten about them or the others in their class. The other point is that students who struggle the most need larger groups of relationships. which I found really important. It says adults, they need more adult relationships in their life, and they need more student relationships to elevate them. So again, another point for these kids who are really struggling, you know who those friends are who struggled in your classroom. This is even more important for them. And at the end of the slide, I do have some specific ideas for just students who really struggle that you might want to extend this to give them that extra support. And they also reminded us that many students are having a fear that they won't be ready for next year. And we forget about that, but especially struggling students, around halfway through kindergarten, they start realizing if they're not up with their peers. I mean, they're pretty street smart. And so they're already realizing if their parents aren't working with them at home, and even kids who are, they might have this fear that they're not going to be ready for next year. So we want to keep that in mind and trying to encourage them about who they are as students and that we believe in them. And then one of the biggest points, it says most students will forget what has already happened in the school year because everything that's happened with the quarantine is going to overshadow that. And so that's really the jumping point I want to start this with, is that we want to help remind them the good memories that we have had from August to March and not let it all be overshadowed with quarantine time, right? We want to, and so we need to help remind them of what that time was. So we're going to start off with a quick activity. Now, since we are in a class and I don't have shared pictures of all of us together, I chose the one shared experience we all do have, which is the pandemic. And so we are going to do this digital memory activity and quick write. I have gathered some of my favorite memes. I actually think I want to write a book that is 2020 best memes of the quarantine, because there have been so many good ones. But what I've done is I've chosen 6 memories that we can probably all relate to from the pandemic. And what I'd like us to do is spend about 2 minutes. I've got them numbered here. I'd like you to choose one of them. So just on a piece of paper you have, a scratch piece of paper, choose one of those memes and quick write what memory does it remind you of, and you know, and just a little silly about it, but just do a quick write about one of these memes that gives you a memory of the pandemic that you'll never forget. All right, now at the end, I am going to ask a few people to share. All right, so we'll take about 2 minutes to do that. I'll set my timer here. We're going to take about 30 more seconds. Okay, so as you finish up, if you'd like to start putting in the chat which particular meme might have given you a memory, I'm going to go ahead and share mine just to give you an example of what we're looking for. And then if we have, I think Linda will help call if there's some others who'd be willing to share. I actually chose meme number 3. I thought it was hilarious because I got caught in the Tiger King, which I'm not a better person because of it at all. In fact, I feel worse of a person that I got into it, but I did. And so I put, would it have even become popular if it hadn't been during the pandemic and we had nothing else to do? Maybe not. But I found it ironic that so many people watched it too. And I, went into that as well. Are there any others? Or Linda, you want to help me decide who else would like to share?
Well, I'll just share from the chat here. We've got Katie who connected with meme one. Love that. It says our family of four is sharing a tiny bottle of hand sanitizer that we take to my mom's to refill when it's empty, since we haven't been able to buy any new ones.
Yeah, I can't find it.
I can relate to that. I have a good friend who for years was putting little bottles in goodie bags. I've saved them all. And I've said to her, you're saving my life right now. So, Jeff, would you like to share yours?
Yeah, I looking at number 2 and all the faces looking, I was playing a late night session of Dungeons and Dragons and I fell asleep during it, and so then everyone on the call had to be yelling at the screen to try to wake me up. None of which worked, and I wish I could have seen all of them yelling at me. I do have a video of me sleeping because they went ahead and took video of that to make sure I knew what had happened.
And then we also have one from Julie. She says she identifies with number 5. The first weeks were wild, so much sadness and overwhelming pressure, but also some major life stuff. A kid post-surgery, senior daughter, special needs nephew with us for several weeks. Oh my. 2 small businesses to wrangle. And she goes on, there was layer after layer of craziness. So she said, I knew I should keep some, the main things important, but some days were lots of deep breaths. That's for sure. That's a lot, Julie.
That is. Well, for sake of time, I won't belabor this point, but I'll go here to my next slide. I just wanted to show that this would be an activity for students to just do a digital memory share out, to the point that they might have forgotten the nice things you've done August through March. So since I didn't have those as a class, what you could do is take some pictures from those months of good things that you had spent time together and have students do that same activity just to help them remember the positive memories that we've had together. Remember that field trip we went on. Remember the time this happened to me as a teacher. Our class pet got loose in the hall. The hamster was running down the hall. Just to try to conjure up. And I put on this slide, you might, for smaller students, even give them a STEM. My favorite memory was because, just to help support them in their sharing. But also what we're trying to do here, not only are we trying to create community and help them remember the time that we all had together, we're also modeling to students who may not have been able to come up with a memory on their own. We've now anchored them in one. So if they didn't have one, they've now heard someone else. And if I thought, oh yeah, the hand sanitizer, I could have stolen Katie's idea if I didn't have one. And that now could be my memory that I could share. So it's really a scaffolded way to take them on a memory walk, but to also provide them something to write about later, because that's the next thing we're going to ask them to do. So on this next part, after you've done a digital memory walk, you're going to tell kids, we're going to create class memory collage. So each one of you is going to choose a memory that then you're going to send to me, and as the teacher, I'm going to put together as a class collage. And they have 3 choices here. Students love choices, adults love choices. So here are their 3 choices. 1, you can choose from the above pictures. So they could look at the 6 or 7 pictures that you chose, and they could choose one of those to write about. 2, they could draw their own picture. Students typically don't have cameras at school or opportunities to have other pictures of things that have occurred. And so you would give them the option to draw a memory that they might want to share. Or 3rd, if they did have some pictures, they could choose a different picture that they wanted to send to you with the writing. So I would suggest is doing this with students. I'm trying to do with you what exactly I would do with my class. I'd have us do the digital memory walk. I'd give them these 3 choices. And now I'm going to show you an example of each one of these choices so you can see an exemplar of what it might look like. So on the next slide here, we have, if you chose option 1, I'm going to pretend that I posted a picture of our class pet, right? And one of our friends with them, the class pet Squeakachu. And Jude wrote my favorite memory, and I've got our STEM up there because we want to remember that you always want to fill out your STEM when you're writing for our collage. Older grades 3 through 5, you could help me, or you might want to make a more difficult STEM, but I feel like the point of this is to be succinct. So take that as you will. But And this one, following the prompt, my favorite memory was taking home our class pet Squeakachu because my dad won't let me have a pet. So he really enjoyed that. So this is an example of taking one of my pictures. Second is an example if you drew your memory. And this one is from Luke, and he says, my favorite memory was when I wrote a funny story about a talking hamburger because everyone laughed. So that was an example of drawing. And then our last one is if you have your own picture, you might submit a picture. And Macy says here, my favorite memory was when Mackenzie shared her princess tiara with me because I am a princess. All right, so the next step, so here are the steps for you as a teacher. I've kind of tried to succinctly put, if you were wanting to make a class memory collage, you could start with this idea of a digital memory walk them through some things throughout the year. Give them time. The share out part is really important because for younger kids, they really need that opportunity to talk about their memories. You've anchored them in some. Then you can give them some time to independently brainstorm from 3 options. You provide them examples like I just showed you. You can steal mine if you'd like to use to show them. And then have them submit their memories to you. And then how you want to do that final project. For sake of time, I didn't get into lots of different technology ways, but you could make it as simple as putting it on a PowerPoint or Prezi, Movie Maker. You could even put it on a Google Doc, whatever piece of technology you're familiar with. Less is more at this point. You don't need to learn more technology. So here's number 2 option, could be a memory book student to student. So the first step in this is I have a class picture. It's been a while since they've been together, so they might actually need this picture of the friends in their class to see. So you could do a little bit, let's remember our picture day, and we go through the names of the students on the class. And then to our next slide here, our STEM for this one is gonna be, I like a person's name because. So what's going to happen here is, as the teacher, I'm going to choose 3 people. So Katie, I'm going to be sending you a name of 3 people in our class that I want you to write a kind word or sentence about. And so to me, the class picture is really important here because they shouldn't have forgotten faces, but that would help prompt them. As you gave them their name, they could go back and look if they needed to. So a simple STEM could be, I like that person because, and here's an example. And now the important thing for the teacher here would be thinking back to that relationships, right? Everybody wants to be known and be remembered. And so as the teacher, I suggest that you have control of that because you're probably aware of who had relationships and would be able to say nice things about each other. But the big thing for me is this is your opportunity as a teacher to write a nice thing about each one of the kids too, building that relationship. So here's my example under Bentley. I really love having Bentley in class because he's always smiling. I remember when I was having a bad day and he told me his pencil joke. The whole class laughed and I smiled the rest of the day. And then here's some example I can show students of what I might want to see from you. Using our STEM, I like Bentley because he always shares with me. At the bottom, I like Bentley because he stood up for me when someone was not being nice. He's a good friend. And I like Bentley because he's always kind to others and makes me laugh. So when you receive those 3 names from me, I want you to write using our STEM, I like the person's name because, and think of something nice. On Antonio's, I loved how he was really specific and he wrote me about a specific memory he had with Bentley. But the point of this is we want to encourage and remember all the nice, good things about people in our class. So then here on the next slide, I've just tried to succinctly put, so if you chose this option, here are the steps that I've gone through with that. To post a picture, it's always, older students, you can decide if you need that STEM, but I think providing an example of seeing what it looks like. And then the next step, you can decide if you don't have a picture of all of your students, which I may not have had as a teacher, you could ask students to send that, arrange them into a slideshow. You come up with your comment, assign the 3 names, gather those, and put them together. At the bottom here, I have an option, which if you wanted to use something collaborative like Google Classroom or Padlet, you could get comments from everyone in the class on each person. But my caution here, and I've had this as a PD person using this, that sometimes kids aren't appropriate. And so the reason I suggested controlling that would be to avoid anybody writing something funny or not so nice that the student might see if that makes sense. So you would know your class to know if that would be a problem or not. But that is why I controlled it in releasing out the names, because I just want to, the whole point of this is to build children up and have positive relationships. So I definitely wanted to keep that in mind. So other suggestions that I think would be a great idea, especially for kids who are really struggling, you could also, 3 through 5, this might be a better option for you. Students could write a letter to their teacher next year. They could explain what they love about school or some of their strengths. That would be a great opportunity. Then you could tie this next one or do this separately. Individual Zoom meetings with struggling students. So if you have somebody who you know might need extra relationships, maybe that's 3 or 4 kids, maybe have an individual Zoom with them and some of the teachers that they might have next year, and help them make connection to get ready for that. Have them share their letter through the Zoom call to really build them up of, oh, Linda is a great student, I know you're going to love her, and just build up their self-esteem. And then last, if you had the time, I think all students would love this, would be an individual teacher video message sending out to, hey, Julie, it's Mrs. S. I just want you to know I miss you so much, and I hope you have a great summer. Look at all the great things everybody in our class said about you. I'm so excited for you to go on to the next year. It could be 20, 30 minutes, but all of these suggestions were just to, again, build up, to provide closure for kids and to help build that relationship and help them have a positive closure for the year. So I've thrown a lot at you. I feel like, I'm sorry, I've talked a lot, but I'd like to give a little bit of debriefing time. Can we just take 30 seconds? I want you to think through, I know there's been a lot of chat going on, but thinking about the idea of this class collage book or this student to student idea, I'd really like to hear from the group in about the next 30 seconds of what ideas do you have? Maybe there's modifications you're thinking, or any other ideas.
I'll jump in, and this is something we both put in the chat and I think would be wonderful to add to the older students. I love the idea that they would, sorry, that they would be writing about their classmates. And I wrote that they have this tradition, all older students as far as I know, of when the yearbook comes out, they get to sign each other's yearbook, and they do that in their yearbook, right? They share something really positive about the people whose yearbook they're signing. And so I know that they're so sad about losing all their traditions, and this might be a great way, not just to wrap up the year, but to also replace that tradition that I think that they're, that they're really missing. And I also love that these individual messages taps into what you shared at the beginning about these trauma-induced needs, that they have that need for connectiveness and relationship. So I like that your suggestions here build on that. They're a way that teachers can get to that need of connecting. So I like that very much.
Good.
Katie, do you have something you would like to share?
I was just thinking, I know that so many teachers are very overwhelmed right now. And so I just wanted to add that I think it's okay to not have the final product of this, especially if you're doing the one from teacher to students. If you can get the students to do it before it, before you lose students for the summer, it's okay if it takes you a couple weeks to get caught up and get the product out. Your students will totally love it if they receive this memory book that you've put together for them in June. That's okay. So I just wanted, I like to help teachers ease the pressure valve a little bit. And so just a reminder that it doesn't all have to be completed before you leave. The teacher work part you could put off a little bit and still have a strong impact on students. I just want to mention, Shauna, I love so much. This is going to be a year to remember. For many of our students, it's not going to be a year that they remember fondly. And so to have a physical, concrete memento that is positive, that does give us a good memory, I think is just beautiful. It's a beautiful token of, maybe the year that didn't go well, but here's a way that we can capture some of the good from it, and we can hold on to that in a concrete way. So I think, I just don't want anybody to underestimate how powerful this could really be in the lives of our kiddos.
I was
I can-
I was thinking about sort of adapting this to older grade levels. I think that there's a when you get into the person stuff, that can get a little fraught and odd. And so I think that could be an option. I think kids who want to do that could do that. But I think there might be something really powerful too about just allowing kids. I really resonated with what you said about, kids are going to forget what they did August to March. And even just one of these where kids are making comments about what they did, and not necessarily about each other or just because maybe some teachers might be uncomfortable with that too. Even if I could just imagine sort of like a sort of central picture of, hey, remember when we did this, and then sort of people's sort of one sentence reflections on what they loved about that experience or what they want to remember. I think that could also be a neat adaptation of this, especially and letting kids, older kids, sort of set the table of contents there of saying, yeah, I want to include this and this and this, and sort of let their memories be what it is, rather than sort of the teacher dictating, and we did this and we did this and we did this, don't you remember? I think that could be a really cool interactive piece there.
So I'm also going to point out something that Cami shared in the chat. She said she did something similar at the beginning of the year with fifth graders. So it's also a beginning of the year potential. We made a class dictionary of students, and the students added descriptions of the person. It was something like this. We added a picture to, oh, I love this, Mrs. Is it Gocher? Noun, a female teacher, mother, a reader, a person who loves to draw and paint. This is really nice. And then when new students came, she said that they could learn things about other students in the class. That's fantastic. So it has that versatility of being end of the year or beginning of the year. It's fantastic.
Great idea.
Well, thank you so much, Shauna. And thanks all of you for being here and sharing your ideas with us in the chat. We look forward to seeing you. We only have 2 episodes left for this season, although I think we'll have more seasons to come. So I hope you can join us Wednesday and Friday this week as we continue to think about how to close out this very unusual year with our students. So hope to see you then. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.